It's that time of the week when we like to break down stories from three levels of government with CTV political commentator Scott Reid. And Scott is here on the couch yet again this morning. Welcome back from Queens. Glad you had a good week there.
I did, yeah. Doing a little teaching, poisoning young minds.
I'm sure they weren't poisoning. I'm sure they came out really well from this. In the meantime, let's talk about the here and now. What's happening coming up today at City Hall? Of course, there's going to be a flag raising for Israel's Independence Day, a decision that's being scrutinized. A lot of people looking at this, even in Ottawa, they canceled there. So what are the politics behind an event like this today?
Well, they're extraordinary. I mean, and we've talked about this before here, how this, the war in Israel and the politics of this, how it's starting to affect almost every level of government over and over and over again. So we have the encampments, you see the challenges that, you see what's happening at the university level. We see how it's affecting the presidential race in the United States. It's going to affect future races here in Canada. And, so what you see with this flag raising is the mayor this morning issues a statement saying, there's a process, it's a protocol, we'll respect it, and therefore we will raise the flag. But politically, I'm hands off, man. I'm not touching that wood stove. So I'm out of here. I will not be at the event. And I would be critical of that. And the reason I'm critical of it is I think even in this extraordinarily difficult period, and I know it's a divisive issue, her rationale was this issue is too divisive for me to be present at it. But I think if you're going to raise the flag, then be there. Like the city either places its imprimatur on the decision or it doesn't. And as mayor, I don't think you can say, I will permit the flag to be raised, but I will absent myself as what? As a sign of protest, as a sign of disagreement, as a sign of sympathy to the other side, or just it's divisive, and therefore I find this issue too difficult for me to be associated with, and I'm just going to bail on it. Your job is not to bail. And so I think that the mayor should have made a stronger decision one way or the other. Raise the flag and be there, or don't raise the flag and defend the decision. Yeah,
it's really interesting. Mark Saunders, of course, who wanted to be mayor, was here saying not along the same lines as you, but saying, it's a sign of strong leadership if you're there, because otherwise you're giving a kind of nod and a wink to the people running encampments or other protests that, hey, it's almost acceptable. Do you agree with that sort of rationale?
I do, and that's why I say I think you have to make a decision clear-cut one way or the other, because you are Johnny on the spot in this situation. And I don't think these kind of, these half-hearted, these half-way solutions are really going to work. I don't think they get you off the hook. I don't think that they satisfy either side, and I don't think that they demonstrate leadership. I will say, I have spent 35 years working for politicians at different levels. I don't want to understate how difficult this issue is. I really do think this issue is going to drive politics at every single level for the foreseeable future. It's a massive consideration, and so it's not a small matter. But I still think that doesn't mean you don't have to place your two legs underneath you and stand where you're supposed to stand.
Got you. Okay, interesting. In the meantime, coming up in a couple of hours' time, the Premier and Prime Minister are going to be at Port Colburn. This is all about, apparently, according to 610 CKTB, the auto sector.
Well, we've seen lots of these announcements. We've seen Honda, Toyota, lots and lots and lots of these investments. My own, Volkswagen, I should say, I think what's interesting about this, if we're going to get another one of these, if we're going to see another example of the federal government and the provincial government saying we're going to bring billions in direct subsidies, billions in tax credits in order to attract investment, create this critical mass of EV manufacturing, supply chain, right? It increasingly, every time they do this with a Conservative Premier here in Ontario, I think it places more and more pressure on Pierre Poilievre as the federal opposition leader. How long between now and the next federal election, a year, 16 months, can he escape a question of, is this going to be your policy? Will you honor these commitments? Are you in agreement with this? Because they make kind of purring sounds about disagreeing with corporate welfare, not liking this, but they're not being pinched down on it. So I think every time Ford participates in another of these announcements of the Prime Minister, it paints Poilievre into a tighter and tighter corner. And I think it's going to be harder and harder for him to escape without saying where he stands on this.
Especially with his lead in the polls, anticipating that he would be the next Prime Minister. So yeah, that makes it even more interesting.
And with his lead, he doesn't want to be held down. He doesn't want to turn to people in Alliston, right, or in Niagara and say, yeah, I'm bailing on that. I don't believe in that, but neither does he want to endorse it. So he's just trying to straddle the fence, and you know what gets sore when you straddle a fence.
Sure do. Okay, so let's move on to this. Justin Trudeau has been a little sore from the capital gains tax changes. He's now released a video kind of explaining how it all works, but I've often heard if you're explaining, you're losing.
Well, exactly, except I think what's interesting about this video, so a couple of things. One, the Prime Minister's been so outboxed and the Liberal government's so outboxed when it comes to communications in this medium. You know, Pierre Poilievre has been so successful in using, you know, these short form videos, social media. So this looks like it's a better effort from the Liberals. So at least he's upping his game. So I find that interesting. A little bit more skill and effort involved. Yeah. But what I think is really interesting, they're not playing defense. They're not putting out this video because they're scared of this issue, or they're responding to doctors who have protested, or whatever have you. They're putting this out because they are going on offense. They want this issue. It is what we call a wedge in politics, where you try to wedge your opponent, force your opponent to declare themselves. And again, just like the last issue, what the Prime Minister is really trying to do is get Pierre Poilievre to say whether or not he would support that capital gains exemption change. And Poilievre so far has been stitched lips shut about it.
I asked him right here on CB20 for breakfast about that. He said, "You're asking me a hypothetical because it hasn't passed yet." So I'll try again next time I talk to Pierre Poilievre. Yeah,
You're asking me a hypothetical because this could be we could be living a multiverse, and who knows what a different version of myself might do.
We will find out the next time we have a conversation. I'll look forward to our conversation again next week. Scott, thanks for this. Appreciate this.